Welcome back to Guitar Search Saturdays, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, we're here at Nepean Music in Mornington. This is their new location. Now, this is a great store if you're into used and new equipment. They have a lot of stuff here on consignment. You can drop your guitar in and they'll help sell it for you. It's a really cool thing. It means every time you come here, odds are there's going to be different stuff on the walls, which is great. Now, there's some really interesting and unique guitars at Nepean Music that you won't see at your regular big box store. So that's why we're here. We're here to check out some really cool stuff. And I strive to bring you the best content when it comes to guitar store walkthroughs. So I hope you get a kick out of it. Now, as per always, this video is not sponsored. If you can leave a thumbs up, I really appreciate it. A huge thanks to Rhiannon behind the camera who helps with these particular videos. And also Colin from Nepean Music for allowing us to do this particular walkthrough. We're going to talk to him and pick his brains about a few of the things that he's working on. And if you're a fan of vintage Australian amps, stay tuned. I've got some pretty cool stuff to share with you in this video. So let's get into it and check it out. Now, it's stinking hot out here. It's like almost 40 degrees Celsius. So where to go in before I get burnt? Let's do it. All right, let's go in and check it out. Now, the cool thing is when you walk in the doorway, we've got an old converted Street Fighter 2 machine into some funky LED lights. It says, come on in up here. So that's what we're gonna do. Here's the view. As soon as you walk in, there's a whole lot of electric guitar amps, but we have a beautiful Gibson ES-335 over here. Just an absolutely stunning looking electric guitar. And check this out. It says, not for your eyes, no looking. Damn, I broke the rule.
Now, you may or may not have noticed the sign on the door that said this store is currently under renovation. So by the time it's completed, the floor space will be at least twice as big as what you're currently seeing. And odds are there'll be even more stuff in here. But don't let the unassuming size of Nepean Music sway you from thinking there's not a lot of great stuff in here. This is a total treasure trove of great stuff, and I'll walk you through it.
All right, let's check out some of these amps over here. So we've got the Thunder 50. Beautiful, nice big quad box cab down here. An M&R amp, something I'm not familiar with. I might have to ask the guys about this one. We've got an orange Rock Verb 50 Mark III. These are super versatile amps, 50 watts, killer. This is an old Vox AC30 head, and it's got like a new cab below it here, but yeah, what a great find this is. This is awesome. AC30s, they're a classic for a reason. One of my favorite amps of all time. One of my big regrets was getting rid of one of these. This is a Fender Super Reverb. It's got 4 10s, absolutely beautiful.
Here's a 2-channel Fender amplifier that will do anything from a beautiful clean tone all the way through to kind of 80s or thrashy kind of distortion tones. This is the Red Knob edition, and yes, it's a full-blown valve amplifier.
Over here we've got a Carl Martin electric guitar amp, and this is a Brett Kingman X-Demo model. Check that out. This is a 50 watt, 212 cab as well. So yeah, beautiful combo. Over here, we've got a Badger 18. I don't often see too many Suhr amps around, so it's great to see one here. All right, we've got the AC30. This is the 50th anniversary edition in this beautiful cabinet. I mean, look at the joins here. Stunning.
If you lived in Australia in the 1970s, odds are you're very familiar with the name Straus. And if you live outside of Australia, you've probably never heard of them. This is a dual channel 50 watt solid state amplifier, and you can sometimes find these in a tweed finish.
At the back here we've got a Vibrasonic Reverb, which is an amp I don't often come across. Beautiful. Nepean Music here has a whole bunch of great guitars and some stuff I wasn't expecting to see here. So we've got the Pure Salem electric guitars, which are stunning. They're really cool. I got to review these when they were pretty much first out back in the day. And yeah, they've got great pickups, just great value electrics with some unique shapes as well. Hanging on the wall here, we've got some Fujigen guitars, which is something I haven't seen for quite some time. These are really well made, Japanese-made electrics, as you can probably tell from the name, and they're really affordable considering what you get. These are excellent value. Look at this thing. Absolutely stunning. Man, that is so nice. If that was in a lefty right now, I'd be in trouble. That is beautiful. Woo. I dig it. So these are all the S&T style jet guitars over here, but they also do make some LPs. Check this one out. This is beautiful. The top on this looks really nice. This is the JL500 IT, Rosewood fretboard, iced tea. Beautiful. Oh, how's that Ibanez, man? Nice, let's take a look. This is one of the big benefits to coming to a new and used guitar shop. You see pieces like this. This is an old school Ibanez, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's got gold hardware. Stunning stuff, look at that. The finish on the top's crazy good. This is the Brewster Strat, or S-type electric, and it's the Mary Kay 57 reissue style. So you're getting the very sort of translucent finish here on the body. Just, I bet these pickups sound great. It looks very similar to my 50s Fender guitar, except we get gold hardware on here as well. Got some jet bass guitars, very nice. Very jazz bass inspired, no questions about it. We've got a PJ style one over here as well. This is from SX, and I actually play this exact bass in a lefty in black. They sound great. And while this is no doubt a guitar shop, check this out. We've got plenty of vinyl. One of my favorite quotes from Joe Walsh was, "If I knew Rocky Mountain Way would be so popular, I would have written something better." The EVH fans here, look at this, we've got a skateboard. First time seeing one of these.
If you're wondering about the Star Wars theme scattered throughout the shop, it started with a few pieces and then customers would bring in a whole lot of Star Wars merchandise, so it's become part of the personality of Nepean music.
Let's take a look at a few of these acoustics over here. Beautiful stuff. Let's get in here and take a look. There's some really nice stuff you won't see every day, like this beautiful Kaye custom flat top over here. It's a 1940s acoustic guitar. It's got this beautiful diamond pickup right in the middle here. Check it out. Awesome. Has the trim on the side as well. Stunning. Sigma, always a great staple in acoustic guitars, nice and affordable. $569. Awesome. It's like a little Martin. Down here we've got a couple of Resonator guitars, something that I've always wanted to add to my arsenal one day. One day. Might have to make it happen at some point, but yeah, look at these two. Stunning. Nice and affordable too. Now, I've said it before, I'm a big fan of Gibson Acoustics. I think they make some of the nicest looking acoustics you can find, and this one is also pre-loved. It's a Gibson J185EC, 2009 jumbo style body, Fishman pickup. This acoustic guitar is from a brand called Reading. It actually looks like a much more expensive guitar than it is. Check it out, 189 bucks, and it's a lefty.
Nepean Music also have a selection of vintage acoustic guitars, including this Ibanez right here. This is really stunning. I love the whole double mustache-rooney thing going on. Now this is very classic Gibson. Check out that pickguard, man. It's right in line with what Gibson were doing at the time. So yeah, another lawsuit era acoustic guitar. I sat down with Colin, the owner of Nepean Music, to talk a little bit about the store and also some of the really cool projects he's working on. Tell us a little bit about, because you've just moved recently here.
Yeah, we've just moved into this new building. Ultimately, for nearly 30 years in our old building, down on the Nepean Highway, still here in Mornington. That version of our business that had been operating predominantly as a retailer, a suburban retailer of mainly new equipment and a little bit of secondhand, you know, it was finding itself getting dated pretty rapidly post-COVID. The world and our industry is changing a lot, very fast. So it was a kind of an adapt or die scenario for us. We just had to look at things and go, all right, what's going to be a version of this business that we feel has legs, can move forward. Then we got very lucky and found this beautiful old building down here on the back of Main Street in Mornington, which has kind of industrial history. But I don't know, the minute I pulled up out the front in that car park out there and looked at the building, I went, that looks like a guitar shop. And I just knew that that was where we were going to move.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a guitar shop with great parking too.
It is, which is rare, right? That's one of the things we've noted. And we had a scenario in our old shop where like turning right from our old shop, that could get you hurt. So, you know, this is a relief to have this great spot down here by the beach. So much good coffee on the main street, so much good food, and, you know, big car parking. And we're sort of in the little entertainment district here. There's a couple of pretty notable little band venues right on the corner here.
Nice.
We feel like we're in it now, you know, so this is great. It's worked out really well. However, the caveat to all this being that when we found this old building, the owners of the place had some pretty major structural kind of work they were going to do to the building, whether we were coming in or not. We had to be out of our other building, and so we did a deal with them to come in and set up the store while we await that work to happen. That's where we're at right now. So we don't actually have our proper front door. I will point out to you actually when we're out the front how that will work. There's a big brand new front door going in.
Cool.
There's a bunch of false walls you'll see up around the store here at the moment. They'll all come down and the space will actually just about double from what it is right now.
Fantastic.
So we are sort of running at a kind of reduced capacity right now. However, we're here and we're doing it, and we like to keep it interesting with things that you don't see elsewhere.
Tell us a little bit about some of the stuff you think might be, you know, a little bit more unique to your shop, because you carry the pure Salem guitars.
Yeah,
for example,
that's
right?
one good example. Yeah, in this version of our business where we find ourselves not carrying too many of the big major brands we once relied on.
Yep.
You know, they tend to have their eggs in other baskets these days. We found ourselves looking for things that just inspire us.
Yeah,
and
great.
one of the things we stumbled upon was, Rick's Pure Salem guitars, which are out of Miami, manufactured in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And they are just like super cool.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about some pretty kind of wild designs and things, but they're very cool. They're unique and they're new, yet they just speak to classic guitar and even classic car design a bit. You know, all
totally.
my favorite things just sort of all come
colours
together.
are great.
Yeah, he really nails it, you know.
Yeah.
So we really enjoy that stuff, and we have a range of them here, and ultimately that's an idea of something you don't see anywhere else, just something we have. And obviously we have them all available online, sell them all over the country. So that's a fun one. Outside of that, I think importantly, one thing we do that I know historically played a really big role in retail shops decades ago, but you rarely see anymore, is that we are starting to build and manufacture and produce our own stuff.
That's awesome.
You know, and I guess we're uniquely placed to do that, just with me and my main guitar tech, Joel, both sort of having an interest and a history in that stuff. We found ourselves building our Leadbetter Guitar Co product in pedals and guitars that are slightly Dan Electro inspired numbers, which we find really fun, and they seem to sell really well. And now with our expansion into all tube amplifiers, with the kind of return of the Aussie classic Goldentone name. So that's a big one too. That's been in the making for a couple of years.
All right, so these are the Goldentones that we were talking about before. So walk us through your little
what
you're
seeing here is essentially a bunch of amps that were made here in Melbourne in the 60s. General story here, without going sort of too in depth, is that Rose Morris, who are a giant company out of the UK, who were heavily responsible for brands like Rickenbacker and Vox existing in the fashion they do in the world. They have a direct connection to the Goldentone amps. Ultimately, turns out the son of one of the two guys at Rose Morris married an Australian lady in 1958, and he moved to Melbourne. He opened an office on Swanston Street called Rose Morris.
Yeah.
They didn't have offices anywhere else, just London and this little one in Melbourne. And his goal was to ultimately import all the same brands they did over there here, things like Ludwig, things like Vox, early Marshall stuff. There's a whole list of it. But he found that really hard to do. Post World War II, still a lot of tariffs on things in Australia that were particularly set up around the idea that they wanted cars made here and not imported. But those rules made it very hard for him to bring the gear we now know and love to Australia. So he set up manufacturing Goldentone amplifiers here in Melbourne. Wow. And while there were a few brands around at the time, things like Moody, even Vase out of Brisbane, who all made great amps, Goldentone really did it on another level because they had the backing of a major international company. So they really are great little amps that are very unusual in the way they're made because they feature some valves we don't see in any other brands.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
That makes them very unique. The bigger amps you'll see up the back here from the 60s, like the 1755 or the big Bassmaster at the back, they have these output tubes in them that are very unusual. We can't find another amp in the world manufactured with them. And yet they were in just about every black and white television.
Oh, okay.
And they're the output stages that are in those.
I guess they were probably using what they could.
Well, this is the thing. And interestingly, when they very first set up around 58, the earliest amps they were making did feature things like 6L6s and EL34s. But for some reason, right around 1960, when some of these amps start to appear, that all changes and they start using what they had, which in this case was those tubes. So they do have a very unique sound. When we see some of these smaller amps, they have an output tube in them that is a very unusual one. That I didn't know existed until I encountered these, which is ultimately, it's a tube that looks a bit like an EL84, like you might see in a Vox amp. However, all tubes, if you're unaware, have two sides to them that can be engineered how you would like them to perform. And the interesting thing about these little tubes in these is that one side of those tubes that are in these amps acts like a preamp tube, think 12AX7, and the other side acts like an EL84, like a power amp tube, but all in one bottle.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so when you see the smallest of them, like these things here, they literally just have that one tube in them, and the 12AX7 is the preamp, and the
Oh,
other
that's
side.
amazing.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never.
incredible.
Yeah, well.
So
learn something new every day.
yeah. So when we entered into this world of Goldentone with the ambition to essentially start to develop some amps that we may be able to bring out as new amplifiers from the brand, we started there at that end, and we started developing this little amp here that we call the Gentleman. And this is the amp that's going to come out this year in 2026.
Man, this looks awesome. If you hadn't have told me that, like, it looks like an old amp.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the
There's
design.
a couple of things that are pretty cool about this story, but ultimately when we started designing the circuit, we were designing it around 12AX7 and EL34 because they're the modern standards, until we realized that Electro Harmonics still make that tube that has both sides to it, or at least a version of it. It's not a direct replacement for the old amps, but it basically performs the same. The other really cool part of the story is that this Tolex that you're looking at here on this amplifier, or more specifically Vinex as it was called in the 50s and 60s, is another Australian-made product that is genuine old stock.
Yeah, okay.
That, and quite a lot of it in various colours came out of the Rex factory, from the Rex amplifiers that were made by Lamberti brothers in the 60s.
Okay.
And quite a bit of it was found about 10 years ago when they were moving out of the building in North Melbourne. And so, yeah, some of our amps, not necessarily all of them, but some of our amps will come out with the old Vinex covering on them, which is exactly what you would see on any of these 60s.
Man, you can't beat the new old stock stuff when it's look at
great.
that. That is absolutely beautiful.
But outside of the weird tube factor and the older parts we're mentioning there.
What about the TV legs?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I should show you this to pay tribute
this.
to.
This is great.
This prototype has actually got some black legs on it because we've been messing with the height a little bit, because we've noted that it does have quite a big effect on the sound. And interestingly, the amps are closed back but bottom ported. So there is essentially a bass port coming down, and adjusting that leg height does play quite a role in the bottom end content of the amp. They're pretty interesting designs that we've taken from, with the older ones.
Far out.
So yeah, there's a lot going on there, but we've spared no expense. The transformers in these things are hand wound to the spec of the original A&Rs that were in the 60s amplifiers. They are hand wired, point to point. We, funnily enough, even though the release of these amps is incoming pretty soon, we are actually yet to make an official decision on which speaker is going to go in it. We're still playing with some things. But the prototype as we have it here is holding a Celestion.
Here's a quick sound sampler played on the new Goldentone amplifier, and it's got all the great stuff. Have a listen to this. Take a listen to the trem and reverb combination on this. It's a pretty special amp. Let us know what you think in the comment section.
All right, so what are some of the unique or special guitars pieces here?
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing stuff around at the moment, actually, but one or two things I think are really worth looking at. This just popped up the other day, and it's pre-setup, but it's just a very interesting one to me, in that this is a 1976 Ibanez Explorer, so lawsuit era guitar, and this particular model, which was named the Carina Destroyer, obviously is their tribute to the Explorer.
That's a lawsuit double right there.
Yeah, there it is, Now, it would seem that in that Ibanez range, and with the kind of collectability that's come about around some of those lawsuit guitars of this era that were made, in Japan, this is the king of them. I didn't know this until it showed up, but these guitars are getting an absurd amount of money on the vintage market.
Wow.
All of the lawsuit era guitars, are getting up sort of in that sort of $1,500 to $2,000 mark.
Yeah.
These are getting, let's just say, a lot more than that.
Wow.
I guess have a look on our website if you really want to know. But what I learned a little bit about as I did it is that they're not actually Carina, as the famous Gibsons of the 50s were. They are an ash body. They were just called the Carina V. So my initial thought was that the Carina wood, which is quite rare, may be the reason they have that value.
Yeah.
But it's not Carina wood, it's ash.
Yeah, wow, okay.
The story, as I
Wow.
can tell, is that in the 70s, early 80s, everybody who matters had one. Eddie Van Halen famously did the whole first Van Halen album on this guitar, or one of
far
these
out.
guitars,
Yeah, okay.
which he then famously later went on to chop the sides off.
Yeah.
And it was just a big stick, but then he hated it.
Yeah,
So he never
yeah,
used it
wow.
again. Ace Frehley in Kiss tracked a lot of the Kiss albums with one of these Ibanez's,
Yeah.
even though he was famously a Gibson player. There's this kind of a whole story that comes into just this exact model. And one showed up reasonably locally, and here it is. So,
Wow.
yeah,
How heavy
very
is
cool.
it, if you don't mind me
Bill,
asking?
not too bad.
Yeah, it's nice.
Explorers,
yeah.
you know, can be a bit.
Wow,
full on,
it's road worn in the actual way.
Yep.
Beautiful.
One other thing I thought might be worth a quick look to bypass all the really cool Gibsons and Gretches and things would be to
Yeah.
get over to here.
Yeah, here we
With
go.
this thing that rocked up a couple of weeks ago from our friend Jimmy Hocking. You're probably
yeah,
aware of
yeah,
Jim,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
from the Screaming Jets
Yeah.
and his blues work.
Yeah.
Jim owns a few Brian May guitars,
Wow,
or
look at this
Burns
thing.
Brian Mays. But this one is one that we are finding very hard to place and figure out, because obviously it's got a bit of a pop culture thing going on with the Flash Gordon artwork and the yellow from the famous Kiss record from the 70s. However, this guitar is from the Brian May guitars era of manufacturing, not the Burns era of
Yeah, okay.
manufacturing.
Yeah.
And it appears to be just sort of the normal Brian May model. And if we look really closely, you can sort of see that the edge around here isn't exactly mint.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it does look like that's probably been done by hand, the yellow edging there. And then it does appear though to us, I guess that led us to go, well, like, all right, has somebody modded this guitar?
Yeah, maybe
But
covered it,
when
yeah.
we started really looking, it does appear to all be under the original top coat.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we
wow.
do think, at least to the best of our knowledge, that it's a factory guitar, but we can only assume, because they never manufactured this model, that it was maybe made as a prop or some kind of piece for NAMM, or
Yeah.
who knows?
Do you know when?
We don't.
Yeah.
Well, we think probably around 2010-ish
Okay.
or
Wow.
11-ish, but we don't actually really know.
It looks like something a pinball machine company would use as a additional
Some kind of
prop, you know?
prop. Yeah, it's exactly
it's got the
right,
same sort of
yeah.
vibe. I love it.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
all, you know, the Flash Gordon movie that they
Yeah.
made the soundtrack to. Back in that era, sort of was very much this aesthetic, the yellow with the logo and stuff. And so it obviously pays tribute to that, but it's just a real interesting one and kind of hard to place. This is a Leadbetter Peacekeeper, and this is the guitar that ultimately started the range of stuff that we now make. Concept being here is I have a kind of long relationship with the old Dan Electro guitars, you know, from the 50s and 60s, and again in the 90s when they popped up. And so when we decided we were going to make something that was a little Les Paul inspired, we sort of had the idea to go ahead and make them in the fashion of a Dan Electro.
Yeah.
So the bodies themselves are quite literally masonite and
Yeah.
plywood, like your nan's cupboard. They don't smell like your nan's cupboard. But we did that because we were intrigued with how those old Danos sound, their particular sort of brightness and chime they have.
Yep.
And we've learnt that that very much does have an effect, even when you go and do something like put humbuckers in there. They are JJ's 57 PAFs, hand wound.
Yeah, beautiful.
Ben Bailey over in Adelaide. He makes incredible stuff. We use a top-loading stainless steel bridge with the brass block and brass saddles that we manufacture here on our guitars. The design is obviously very tally orientated, but also plays into the Dan Electro thing a little bit. And between that combination, we've ended up with a guitar that is bright and chimey, yet still thick because of the PAF style humbuckers. And it's kind of like a little dream guitar for me. They just work, very utilitarian,
Yeah.
and they just do their
Tell
job.
us about this switching thing over here. This is awesome. I haven't seen
Yeah,
something like
well,
this before.
the control plate, you know, was designed to look old industrial.
Yep.
And we obviously just wanted a three-way, and we just wanted a volume knob. There's no tone on these guitars.
Yeah, great.
And that volume knob there is essentially a Neve control knob off a Neve mixing console.
yeah, well,
and I guess
yeah.
that just pays tribute to my history with that type of gear and
Yeah.
and the recording world, which I spent a long time in prior manufacturing guitars. I also just thought they always felt so good in the hand.
Yep.
I love the directional aspect of them. So yeah, very cool.
Awesome. All right, so we've got a pedal here, huh?
Yeah, so, you know, while in the 60s, pedals weren't really a mainstay in guitar world yet. They did sort of start to happen around that time. One of the things we wanted to be able to do with the brand as we move forward is sort of make it available to everybody in some sense, you know? And the pedal seemed like a really good way to do that. Admittedly, this one I'm about to show you, the prototype, what we're calling the Reverb Master, is a little specific to a vintage amp, but we will see various versions of this that'll achieve different things as we move forward. But this one essentially acts as the preamp stage here of the Reverb Master Series amps, which is, you know, most like the 1755 there, and has essentially the reverb built in. And again, this is kind of a no expense spared version of this. This is, you know, every high quality component we could fit into one big old Australian overdrive reverb box. And it to the best any pedal could, I think it performs like the front end of an amp.
It's,
you know?
that's pretty unique too. I mean, you don't often see a 2-in-1 like that with chip
that's
and EQ
right.
too. So that's
when
awesome.
we were building the preamp side of it, we did sort of think that the idea of having reverb on there may be a bit novelty, because it's a strange thing to kind of have on a drive pedal for a lot of people. But ultimately, for somebody who likes the tone of a Goldentone style amplifier, you can basically run this into anything and have a version of that at your fingertips.
Great.
It's based on J201 transistors, which of all the transistors out there are the only one that we feel has any kind of tubiness to it. And we've very much voiced it to try and feel like you're playing into an amp. And we've very much designed it so that it's designed to be fed by another pedal, much like your amp would. If you run any other pedal, a tube screamer or whatever, into it, it just eats it up. It turns it to another
great.
monster.
Yeah, because stacking's one of those things that can be hit and miss with a lot of stuff.
This is right. Yeah, it's designed for it. So it doesn't have a lot of gain itself, much like the amps don't. I mean, it'll get there. It gets pretty gnarly when you do go right up, and you can just go all on, and it gets pretty chimey 60s sounding. But ultimately, it's just a whole lot of fun and very Australian, and we can't wait to see those go to market.
It fits the aesthetic beautifully too. It looks like straight out of 1960 something.
We wanted to bring them into the the perspective of the amps. So we should have production versions of those, along with the first run of the Gentleman amplifiers, you know, coming into sort of May is where we're hoping to see those launch. So
beautiful. While Nepean music is very unassuming from the outside, inside, man, they got some really great stuff. It was a blast playing one of those Goldentone amplifiers for the very first time, and a current model which hasn't been said for like 40 or more years. So that's awesome. Thank you to Colin for allowing us to do this walkthrough. A big thanks to Rhiannon behind the camera. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you can, leave a thumbs up. It's like 40 degrees Celsius right now, so we're gonna hit the beach. The beach here is absolutely beautiful. Rhiannon's just got changed. She's in a beach outfit, and I'm sweating balls in pants and a black t-shirt. Whew, I'm gonna make smarter life decisions. We're in the car park though, so that's always good. But seriously, this shop is great. Thank you to all the Patreon crew, all the channel members, and everyone who supports the show by buying one of these t-shirts or whatever the case is. I appreciate it. If you do buy one of these shirts, by the way, I reply to everyone on Fourth Wall with a video thank you message personally. So I do appreciate any support for the channel, and I will catch you on the next one. You can check the shop out by using the links in the description. Catch you soon.